Hi everybody, this is Arkady Frekhtman. I'm a New York City personal injury trial attorney, and I'm coming to you today to discuss a recent case that we took all the way to a jury trial, and we obtained a verdict, and it was a successful verdict in what would be a tough case. And it's a trip and fall case, or a premises liability case. It's a case that a lot of people probably could have, both as a patient, as a plaintiff, somebody who's injured, as well as a lot of lawyers out there might have a case like this. So I was actually asked to do a case analysis, which is a presentation for continuing legal education to teach other lawyers about this case, and that's going to be coming up at the end of August from Trial Lawyers University. And Trial Lawyers University is a group that is organizing a trial conference here in New York City, September 20th, I believe it starts. So I was going to go to that as well. And then I was reviewing my notes to prepare for this, presentation, just to refresh my memory, because this is a trial from February of this year. And then as I was reviewing my notes, I thought, maybe I'll do a video and talk about some of this. So this particular slide deck that I'm looking at now, this is from the opening statement in this trial. So we had already selected a jury, and we were about to present the opening statement. So what happened in this case was a 13-year-old girl was visiting a friend in upstate New York, and it was a manufactured home community. And so when she was there, like a lot of kids that age, 12, 13, a bunch of them were playing, and they were playing in front of one of the homes. And there was some tall grass, and it was about 10, 11 p.m. at night on a July evening. This was a few years ago. This was in 2016. And so what happened was, all of a sudden, she feels a sharp pain in her leg. She's like, what's going on? And she doesn't even fall down, but she just looks down and she sees her sneaker covered in blood. And so she runs to the friend's house, and they look at it. They take off her sneaker, they look at it, and they see it's a scar, and it's a really bad cut. And what happened was, there was a cast iron pipe that was just left there, and that pipe was jagged, and that pipe cut her leg. So the adults take her to the hospital. She goes to the local hospital. This is in the Catskills in upstate New York. They give her some sutures or stitches, 8 stitches, and they send her back. They send her back home, and she doesn't get much treatment, because she's only 13, she thinks it's going to heal. So that's basically it. So this is from the opening statement. So what I started with was, I started talking about this idea that even though the scar itself wasn't that long, it was maybe like 2 centimeters long, it was deep, because it was deep into the skin. And so I showed a slide of 5 millimeters, because some of the medical records confirmed it was 5 millimeters, which is the, as wide as an eraser on a pencil, which is, pretty wide. I don't know if I have a pencil here, but I'll show you the slide. Oh, here's a pencil. So you can see, if that's how wide it gets into the skin, it could obviously affect the nerves. And that was our argument. And so then we talked about a timeline. So we said that she went to the emergency room on the day of. Then about a month later, she went to a hospital in Brooklyn, New York, where she lived, to remove stitches. Then in November, she went to Methodist Hospital in Brooklyn just for a follow-up. And then she hadn't gone anywhere for almost like 3 years. And then she just sees a pediatric neurologist because she's still having a little bit of pain. So she just follows up with this pediatric neurologist, and he says, look, for the most part, it's fine. I don't see anything terrible here, but there could be a superficial nerve injury. And then she goes to the defense doctor in 2020. And then finally, she sees another neurologist in March of 2022. And that turned out to be our doctor that we used as an expert. So that was all the medical care, right? There wasn't much medical care here. So how did we present this case, and how did we build it up to obtain a large jury verdict? What we did was, we explained that, look, this is an individual who was only 13, So she was at the mercy of her parents. And unfortunately, at the time, her parents weren't both living at home. Her mother had maybe left the house for a time. They were divorced. The father wasn't even in her life at all. The mother's ex-boyfriend was staying there. So this girl had to be going to school. Her sister was taking care of her somewhat. She didn't really have any kind of adult. So you couldn't expect a 13-year-old, 14-year-old to start navigating medical appointments, right? You getting insurances, making appointments, and getting more treatment. So that was our response to the lack of medical care. And then we talked about the fact about her, where she was from, and then we introduced this idea of complex regional pain syndrome, which is what the doctor found, our doctor. And what he basically said was that, in that ankle where she had the scar, she had something known as allodynia, which is pain from a non-painful stimulus. So for example, she takes a shower, the shower water hits her ankle, she feels pain. She puts on her jeans, she takes off her jeans, the pants rubbing up against the ankle causes her pain. Even like a little feather, you take a feather and you touch it and it causes pain. Why is this happening? This should not be happening. So what he did was he did a local test known as an SSR, a sympathetic skin response. And he did almost like an EMG, and he looked at the nerve fibers and he said that the nerves were conducting much slower. It was decreased in that area. And that would show him that there is a nerve injury in that area, localized nerve injury to the ankle. And so he diagnosed her as having this CRPS, or at least, the potential to have it. It was starting because she was 13 when it happened. She's 19 at the time of trial. He said there's a potential for this. And so we had some slides about sympathetic skin response. We had some slides about complex regional pain syndrome. We had about how it works, like for example, that you have the injury to a local part of your body, whether it's a hand or a foot, like in this case it was the foot, and the original injury initiates a pain impulse, and that goes to the brain. Then the brain sends it back to the sympathetic chain of nerves in the spinal column, which then goes to the sympathetic nervous system, and the impulse triggers an inflammatory response. So it's almost like the nerves inflame the blood vessels, and that goes back to the hand and leads to swelling, which then goes back to the brain, and then it triggers another response. So it's almost like if you have, like let's say, any kind of circuit, like an electrical circuit, but something is wrong with the circuit, so it just keeps sending the impulse over and over again, instead of sending it once and then having the circuit finish and then stop. Because something is wrong, it keeps sending it over and over again, and the pain is what triggers another response. And it's almost like a cycle, a never-ending cycle of pain and swelling. So that was pretty powerful, I thought. And, in this case, what happened was the judge actually did not allow us to use illustrations or demonstrative evidence. Some judges will let you do that, some judges won't. And so we had like a little cartoon, like a little, demonstrative to explain all this. But the judge would not let us use it. She said, you cannot do that because I'm only letting in evidence. This isn't evidence. So what we did was, I just talked about it in an opening statement, and I made the judge the brain, and I made like the ankle, there was like a little table or podium there. I made that the ankle. And I said, look, that's sending an impulse to the judge, which is the brain. The judge is sending it over to the the spinal cord, which was like the juror chairs were like kind of like the spinal cord or the nerves. And then I made the jurors sitting in the chairs, the blood vessels, they get inflamed. So I kind of made it very personal. You're getting inflamed, and then you're sending that response back to the brain, and then it's a never-ending cycle. So I thought maybe in a way it was even better because I had the slide in front of me, the picture. I was looking at the picture on my iPad, but since the judge wouldn't allow me to show it like on a big screen, I just kind of used the courtroom and made that kind of like a real-life demonstration. So then we talked about autonomic vasomotor control of the blood supply, how the sympathetic nerve fibers attached to the blood vessels, and when you have a high rate of firing, you might have vasoconstriction, and when there's a lower rate of firing, you might have vasodilation. So I got a little bit technical, but I thought it was still interesting. The jurors seemed to be interested in it. And then we got into that idea that it was almost like an alarm system, right? So if the alarm system is wired incorrectly, it might be sending false alarms. And that's what was happening, but then the pain just kept coming. And then we talked about the McGill pain scale and how it works. So this was actually CRPS, or reflex sympathetic dystrophy, also known as complex regional pain syndrome, is very high on the pain scale. Like the McGill pain scale, it goes up to 50. It's used for research. Not all doctors use it. Like, for example, our expert, the neurophysiologist, neurologist that we used in this case, he said, I don't really use the McGill pain scale to diagnose, but yeah, I'm aware of it, that it's used for research. And so the CRPS is a 46 on the pain scale, which is very high, because just to give you an idea, trigeminal neuralgia is a 44. Amputation of a finger or a digit is a 39. A kidney stone is a 42. An unprepared childbirth is a 36. And, even a non-terminal cancer is a 26. Back pain is only a 28. A cut, for example, just a cut is a 17. Arthritis is an 18. A sprain is a 14. A tension headache is an 11. So you could see it's a big, it's almost one of the highest things. The highest the scale goes up to is 50, and this is a 46, and nothing is higher than this. This is a very painful condition. And then we talked about just the signs and symptoms of CRPS, the fact that it's pain from things that should not be painful, like we talked about, like shower water. You get decreased sensation, decreased feeling. You get numbness and tingling, pins and needles. It could be burning, like wasp stinging, and then temperature changes. And the doctor, the expert, confirmed all that. He did that test, the SSR, sympathetic skin response, but he also did a temperature of her ankle that was injured compared to the uninjured ankle, the other leg, and he saw temperature changes. So that was very objective evidence of it having that. So yeah, that was basically like the opening statement. That was basically what we talked about. And then we talked about, things that she enjoyed, because this particular girl, she liked things like, she liked kite surfing, she liked going to the beach, and she couldn't really do that as much. She used to do dancing, things like that, and so how it affected her. So we talked about her life, like gymnastics, dance, running, kite surfing. So we talked about how it affected her life, and we looked into her life. We told some stories about her life, and then we just said, look, listen to the evidence, and all we're asking of you, of the jury, is to be fair, neutral, impartial, and tell us what this is worth, like a change in someone's life like this. What is that worth? So I hope this was helpful. Let us know what questions you have. We are here for you. Please like and subscribe to our channel. And like I said, we are here for you. Our goal is helping serious injury victims and their families. If you have any questions about this case, this opening statement, slide deck, or anything else, feel free to drop us a comment, or you could text me at 347-566-9595. Okay, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.